Welcome back to my channel. These stories have been crafted for sleep. These stories are about alien abductions. Let's begin. I've hiked alone all my life. The silence, the trees, the crisp air, they help me think, help me breathe. Devil's Ridge was my latest solo challenge, a remote section of the Appalachians with rough terrain and almost no cell service. That's exactly why I chose it. No distractions. I started my climb early that Friday morning. The forest was thick, pine needles crunching under my boots. There wasn't a soul around, just me, my pack, and the promise of total solitude. By the time I reached the ridge's overlook, around 3 p.m, the sun was dipping low, painting the valley gold. I made camp near a rocky outcrop, ate some trail mix, and watched the sun vanish behind the peaks. It was around 9 p.m. I first noticed the lights. They weren't stars. At first I thought maybe they were aircraft, 3 bright white orbs hovering low in the sky. They weren't stars. At first I thought maybe they were aircraft, 3 bright white orbs hovering low in the sky, but they weren't blinking, and they weren't moving like planes should. They were completely still, like someone had hung lanterns in the air. Then they started to move, not slowly, not gently, in a sharp, unnatural zigzag. One darted left, then shot straight up like it had been yanked by an invisible string. Another zipped towards the forest, then stopped dead mid-air. The third one just hovered, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. I reached for my phone. Dead. No battery. That was odd. I had charged it fully that morning. I checked my watch. It was frozen. The second hand wasn't moving. Something was wrong. I backed into my tent and zipped it shut. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear the crickets. Then everything went quiet, completely silent. No wind, no insects, nothing. And then the light came. It pierced through the nylon of my tent like a spotlight. Blinding, white, humming with a low-frequency buzz I could feel in my teeth. I couldn't move. My limbs were locked in place, my head full of static. I wanted to scream, but my jaw wouldn't open. The light intensified until it wasn't just outside my tent, it was inside me. I felt it in my bones, in my chest, in the deepest parts of my brain. I wasn't just seeing it, I was connected to it. Then I blacked out. I woke up in the forest floor, not inside my tent, on the cold, damp ground, about 20 feet away from where I'd camped. My sleeping bag was gone. My tent was flattened, like it had been crushed from above. Everything from my backpack had been thrown across the clearing. My watch was ticking again, 5:46 a.m. When I tried to stand, pain shot through my abdomen. I lifted my shirt and saw a perfect circle of raw red skin right above my belly button. No blood, no scab, just the skin had been erased. I stumbled around, collecting what I could. My phone was back on, but the date read Monday, not Saturday. I'd lost 3 whole days. My head ached for weeks after that, and the dreams started almost immediately. Always the same, floating in a silver room, surrounded by tall, faceless figures, a cold voice echoing inside my skull, repeating a phrase I could never remember once I woke. I jolted awake, covered in sweat, sometimes with fresh bruises or scratches I couldn't explain. I didn't tell anyone, not at first. Who would believe me? But then the nosebleeds started. I'd never had one in my life before, but now they came daily. Bright red blood out of nowhere. Once while driving I nearly passed out when it started, gushing so fast I couldn't see. Finally I went to the doctor. They ran tests, MRI, blood work, even a sleep study. Everything came back normal, except one thing, a tiny metallic shard embedded deep inside my nasal cavity. The ENT said it looked like a splinter of some kind, or some kind of implant. They removed it. I asked to keep it. It was no bigger than a grain of rice, but under a magnifying glass you could see microscopic grooves etched into its surface, like circuitry. No one could explain it. I started researching alien abductions, missing time, strange implants, and that's when I found a forum about Devil's Ridge. Dozens of posts from people who'd been there, hikers, hunters, campers, all saying the same thing. Strange lights, loss of time, dreams they couldn't shake. One post chilled me to my core. A woman described seeing 3 hovering orbs, losing days, and waking with a circular mark on her stomach. She posted a photo of it. It was identical to mine. I messaged her. She never replied. Her account hadn't been active since 2017. Now, it's been 2 years since it happened. I don't hike anymore. I stay away from forests, from mountains, from anything too remote, but the dreams haven't stopped. If anything, they've become more vivid. Sometimes I wake up outside, standing barefoot in the yard, with no memory of how I got there. Sometimes I wake up and they're still in my room, standing at the edge of my bed, unmoving, watching me with black, empty eyes. I don't know why they chose me, I don't know what they did to me, but something changed in me that night. I can feel it, like a signal I'm not meant to understand, buzzing faintly under my skin, and sometimes when I look at the night sky, I see them just waiting. Encounter number 2. I've lived on this farm my whole life. It's been in our family for 3 generations, ever since my granddad built the first barn with his bare hands. The land out here in Iowa is quiet, honest. It grows good corn, and that's all I ever needed. Until last August. That's when things changed. When I stopped sleeping through the night and started locking my doors with shaking hands. It was the morning of August 9th when I first saw the crop circle. I'd gone out just after sunrise, coffee in hand, to check the eastern field. That's when I saw it. Rows and rows of my corn flattened in perfect spirals. I'm not talking about wind damage. These were intricate, circular patterns, carved into the stalks like something had pressed them down with surgical precision. I stood there for a full minute, mouth open, coffee cooling in my hand. My first thought was vandals, or maybe some bored teens with too much time and access to a drone. But as I walked into the centre of the largest circle, I felt something wrong. The air was still, too still. No wind, no birdsong, no buzzing insects, just an oppressive silence that wrapped around me like a wet blanket. Then there was a smell, ozone and something burnt, like scorched metal. The hairs on my arms stood straight up. I turned and got the hell out of there. I didn't sleep much that night. Around 2 a.m. I woke up with a jolt. My ears were ringing, and the bedroom light was flickering even though the switch was off. I sat up and noticed the outside floodlights were glowing bright white, not the warm yellow I had installed. They were wrong. I walked to the window and looked out across the field. That's when I saw them. 3 tall figures standing in the middle of the crop circle, too thin to be human, with limbs just a little too long. They weren't moving, just staring at the house. Even from that distance I felt their eyes on me. I grabbed my shotgun and burst out the front door, adrenaline kicking in. But the moment I stepped outside, a deafening hum hit me like a brick wall. My teeth rattled and my vision blurred. I dropped the shotgun and fell to my knees. Above me the sky pulsed with light. A circular craft hovered silently, no bigger than a tractor, but completely smooth. No seams, no rivets. It gave off this pale bluish glow, and it felt alive, like it was watching me, thinking. Then I couldn't move. My body was frozen in place. I couldn't blink. I couldn't breathe. I felt myself lifting off the ground, slowly, like gravity had just given up. The farm disappeared beneath me, swallowed by the blue light. I passed out. When I came to, I was inside. Something cold and silver. I was lying on the table, completely naked. All around me were those figures. Not men, not machines, something else. Their skin was pale grey, almost translucent, and their eyes pitch black. No whites, no pupils, just void. I couldn't speak, but I could think, and they were listening. They didn't talk with mouths. I heard them inside me, voices like cold wind, sifting through memories. This one remembers. He will not. Mark him. Then something sharp pierced the back of my neck. A needle maybe, or something worse. My body convulsed and my vision filled with static. Then everything went dark again. I woke up in my bed, fully clothed, with dirt on my boots and a pounding headache. I thought it was a nightmare until I saw the mark. A perfect triangle of small, raised bumps at the base of my neck. No redness, no bruising, just 3 tiny bumps in the pattern, too precise to be natural. The next morning every animal on the farm was spooked. The cows refused to leave the barn. My dog wouldn't stop whining. I checked the field again, more circles, even more intricate than before. And then I noticed something worse. Time was missing. The last thing I remembered was seeing those figures around 2 a.m, but when I checked my phone it was already after 10:30 a.m. 8 hours gone. I had no idea how I'd gotten back in bed, or why I couldn't stop shaking. Over the next week it kept happening. I'd fall asleep and wake up somewhere else. Once in the barn loft, once on the roof, always barefoot, always covered in dirt and scratches. My dreams were full of strange symbols and mechanical humming. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them, those black eyes staring into me, studying me. I went to a doctor in Des Moines, desperate for answers. He found something lodged near my spinal cord, right where the triangle was. He said it looked metallic, but nothing he'd ever seen before. Too small for surgery. "You sure you didn't get into an accident?" he asked. I just shook my head. I haven't told anyone in town. They already think I'm a bit odd, living out here alone, but I've started keeping a journal, writing down everything I can remember from the dreams. Sometimes I wake up and the pages are already filled in with words I don't remember writing, in a language I don't recognise. It's like something in me is trying to communicate with something out there. And last night I saw the lights again. Same place, same strange humming, but this time there were more of them. 6 or 7 crafts hovering just over the tree line, waiting. I don't think they're done with me. I think they marked me, tagged me like an animal, and someday soon they're coming back. Not just for me, for all of us. Encounter number 3. I was 13 when my sister was taken. Her name was Erin. She was 15. Funny, stubborn and fearless. I was a quiet one, the tag-along little brother she always let come with her on her late-night adventures. That night we were just stargazing. That's all it was supposed to be. We lived in northern Arizona, not far from Flagstaff. We had a huge backyard that backed up onto open desert. No lights, no neighbours, just wide open sky. Erin had just gotten a cheap telescope for her birthday and convinced me to sneak out with her after her parents were asleep. It was one of those nights when the sky looked impossibly big. Stars like shattered glass. I remember Erin pointing at constellations, making up names for them because she thought the real ones were boring. We were laughing, eating gummy bears, and watching the sky slowly turn. Then the stars moved. At first I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. One of the stars suddenly darted across the sky in a sharp, perfect line. Then another followed, not falling, not like meteors. This thing changed direction mid-flight, like they were alive. Erin saw it too. She lowered the telescope and whispered, "Did you see that?" I nodded. Then everything changed. The air went still, silent, no crickets, no breeze. Even the temperature dropped. It felt like we'd stepped into a freezer. I could see my breath. Then the light came. A white beam, brighter than any spotlight, shot down from the sky. It hit the ground maybe 50 feet from where we were sitting. It didn't flicker. It didn't move. It just hovered, perfectly still, humming so low I felt it in my chest. We both stood up. "Erin," I said, grabbing her arm, "we need to go." But she didn't move. Her eyes were locked on the light. She looked hypnotized, like it was calling to her. Then she stepped forward. I screamed her name, held onto her arm, but she slipped from my grasp like I wasn't even there. The moment she stepped into the light, she floated. Her feet left the ground. Her hair lifted like she was underwater. She wasn't scared. That's what haunts me the most. She looked calm. Then she rose into the sky. I remember falling to my knees, covering my eyes from the blinding light. There was a high-pitched screech, a rush of hot wind, and then nothing. The light vanished, the humming stopped, the stars returned, and Erin was gone. I ran back to the house, screaming for my parents. They didn't believe me. Not at first. How could they? It sounded insane. But when we searched the yard, there were signs. The telescope knocked over. Scorched patches of grass where the beam had been. A single shoe Erin had kicked off as she floated away. The police were called. They treated it like a runaway case. They said she probably took off, that she'd come back in a few days. She never did. For years I was the only one who stuck to the story. My parents stopped talking about it after a while. My mum took down all the photos of Erin. My dad started drinking. They divorced the year I turned 16, but I never let it go. I started researching everything I could. UFO sightings, abduction cases, government cover-ups. It became an obsession. I kept a binder of stories just like mine, people vanishing in beams of light, missing time, the hum. I knew I hadn't imagined it. I knew Erin was taken, and deep down I believed she was still out there. Then, last year, I got a message. An anonymous email, no subject line, no body, just a photo attached. It was blurry, probably from a security camera, but the girl in the image looked exactly like Erin. Same brown hair, same sharp jawline, same green eyes. She was walking barefoot across a road in the middle of the night, wearing a hospital gown. The timestamp read 2:30 a.m., somewhere outside Albuquerque. I dropped everything and drove there. I spent 3 days showing the photo around gas stations, hospitals, police stations. No luck. No one had seen her. But on the third night I parked near the area from the photo and waited. That's when I saw the lights again, hovering over the distant hills, 3 of them, arranged in a triangle. They pulsed slowly, like they were breathing, and just like before, the air grew cold, silent. The hum started, low and deep. I got out of the car and walked towards them. This time I wasn't scared. I wanted them to see me. I wanted them to know I remembered. Then from the corner of my eye, I saw someone standing in the dark. It was her. Erin. She looked exactly the same, like she hadn't aged a day, but her eyes were wrong. Not scared, not happy, just empty, like she was sleepwalking. Erin? I whispered, stepping towards her. She looked at me and said, "They're watching." Before I could respond, the lights flared. I was hit with a wave of heat and noise, and then she was gone. Again. I don't know what they want, or why they took her, but I know she's still alive. Maybe changed, maybe trapped, and I know they let me see her for a reason. They want me to follow, so I'm going back to the desert. I found others like me, people who've seen the lights, heard the hum, lost the time. We're watching the skies now, all of us, and when the light returns, we will be ready, because I'm not leaving this earth without my sister. Encounter number 4. I work nights at the 911 call centre in rural Montana. It's a quiet job most of the time. Cows getting loose, drunk guys getting stuck in ditches, the occasional domestic dispute. Nothing I hadn't heard before. But there was one night, October 17th last year, that I still think about every single day. It started with a call at 2:12 a.m. I remember the exact time because everything after that moment never made sense again. The line was full of static. I thought it was a prank at first. A lot of teens around here get bored and try to scare dispatchers, but something in the tone of the voice, it froze me. "Hello? Is someone there?" I asked, tapping my headset. A woman's voice crackled through, barely audible. "Help me, they're not human. They're in the house." Then loud static, and something else, this strange humming in the background, low and mechanical. I almost thought it was a machine, but it pulsed, like it was alive. "What's your location, ma'am?" I asked. No answer, just more static. Then a long, sharp beep, like a heart monitor flatlining. The line went dead. Standard protocol meant I had to trace the call. I ran it through our system and got a hit. An old farmhouse about 18 miles out of town, way out past the hills. No neighbours for miles. Belonged to a woman named Sarah Whitman, 38. Lived alone, according to the county records. I radioed Deputy Collins, who was patrolling that area, and gave him the address. "Copy that," he said. "On my way." He sounded calm, routine, but 15 minutes later he came back on the radio, and I've never heard fear in a cop's voice like that before. "Dispatch," he said. "Something's wrong out here." I sat up. "Explain." I'm at the location. There's no house." "What do you mean there's no house? That land belongs to Sarah Whitman." "Exactly. And all that's here is a crater, like something ripped the house out of the ground." Static. Then silence. "Deputy Collins?" I called again. Nothing. I tried to reach him 3 more times. No response. At that point protocol said to escalate. I called the sheriff. He sent 2 more units and told me to stay on the line. That's when my screen started glitching. All the monitors in front of me flickered like old televisions, colour bars, black and white snow, then flashes of symbols I didn't recognise, like circuitry, spirals, triangles, vertical rows of dots. Then it all went black for a full minute. When the screens came back online, every camera feed across the county was showing static, not just the farmhouse location, all of them, even downtown. And then every phone in the call centre, every single one, started ringing at once. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because over the speakers, a sound began to bleed through. Not a voice, not words, just a tone. One long, steady pitch that vibrated down into my bones. And then I wasn't alone in the room. I didn't hear the door open, no footsteps, but suddenly I felt it. This heavy presence behind me, like something tall was standing directly behind my chair, watching me breathe. I turned. Nothing. But the air was different, charged, electric, like before a thunderstorm. The phone stopped ringing. Then every screen filled with the same image, a pair of black, almond-shaped eyes. Not human, too wide, too far apart. I stared, frozen. They stared back. I don't know for how long. Then everything went dark again. When I woke up, I was lying on the floor in the call centre. It was 6:42 a.m. No sign of a break-in, no damage. The monitors were working fine. All logs were wiped from the system. My headset was still in place. My coffee was still warm. But Deputy Collins? Gone. The other two deputies sent to the location? Found unconscious, a quarter of a mile away. Their patrol car flipped upside down like a toy. No injuries, no memory of how they got there. The crater was still there, just bare earth in the shape of a perfect oval, like something the size of a football field had touched down and erased everything it touched. The Whitman house, gone. No debris, no foundation, like it was never built. We tried to find Sarah, searched records, social media, and family. There was no trace of her. It's like she never existed. I know what I heard in that call. I know what I saw on the screens, and I know something touched this earth that night. Something that didn't have footprints, but left scars. I don't tell people this part, but sometimes when I sit alone in the dispatch centre late at night, the humming starts again. Very faint, like it's deep underground, waiting. And every once in a while the phones will all ring at once, just for a second. No caller ID, no trace, just static. And then silence. Encounter number 5. My name's Dean, and I used to love camping. There's something about the stillness of the woods, the way the stars come alive when you're far from town, that always brought me peace. Used to, anyway. I haven't stepped foot in the woods since last summer, not since Lake Hollow. It started as a weekend getaway with 2 friends, Rick and Tony. We'd been camping together since college, same spot every year, the north side of Lake Hollow, near a stretch of the forest where no one ever really goes. It's remote, quiet, perfect for fishing, beer, and ghost stories. Around the campfire. That Friday afternoon, we got there early, pitched the tents, cracked some cold ones, and spent a few hours on the lake. It was a typical lazy summer day. The weird stuff didn't start until that night. We were sitting around the fire, joking and passing a flask, when Rick pointed to the sky. You guys see that? At first I thought he was just messing with us, but then I looked up and saw it too. 3 lights in a perfect triangle just hovering there above the treetops. They weren't stars, they didn't blink or move like planes. They were still, unnatural. And then they started spinning, slow at first, then faster. We stood up, watching in silence. Tony grabbed his phone to record, but the screen stayed black, dead, even though he swore it was fully charged. That's when everything went dark. The fire snuffed out like someone flipping a switch. No wind, no spark, just instant blackness. My flashlight wouldn't turn on. Rick's watch stopped ticking. And then the sound came. This deep, bone-shaking hum, like a diesel engine, but alive. It vibrated through the trees, through my chest. I couldn't even speak. All I could do was stare up, as those lights began to descend. The trees bent outward, as if something massive was lowering itself into the clearing. Though we couldn't see the shape, only the lights, and the way the forest reacted to them. Branches snapped in slow motion, the air smelled like ozone, and something sharp, metallic. Then everything went white. I must have blacked out because the next thing I remember was waking up in the tent, alone. I stumbled out, called for Rick and Tony, but the campsite was empty. No gear, no parks, not even the cooler. I checked my watch. It was 4:27 p.m, but the sun was rising. I should have been waking up to a Sunday morning. Somehow over 24 hours had passed, and I had no memory of any of it. I searched for hours. I followed the trail back towards the car. No sign of Rick or Tony. No tracks, no torn clothing, no blood. Just a weird circular imprint in the middle of the clearing. About 30 feet across, with scorched edges and flattened grass. I reported them missing, of course. Search and rescue spent a week combing the woods with dogs and drones. Nothing. They chalked it up to getting lost, and eventually gave up. But that wasn't the end of it. Back home things started happening. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, standing outside my apartment, barefoot, covered in dirt. I started hearing that same low hum in my dreams, always followed by a blinding light and a voice I couldn't quite understand. One night I woke up and found 3 long scratches down my side, perfectly straight, like from surgical tools. I went to a doctor. He couldn't explain it, said they looked weeks old, but I knew they weren't there the day before. The weirdest part, I wasn't scared. Not at first. It was like something inside my head had been turned off. Emotions, thoughts, they felt dull, like I was on autopilot. It was only when I caught myself writing strange symbols in the margins of my journal, symbols I don't remember learning, that I realised something was wrong with me. Then I got a voicemail. It was from Rick's phone. I hadn't heard from him since that night. The cops had found nothing, but suddenly out of nowhere, I got a message. It was 3 seconds long, just static, and at the end, a faint voice whispering, "Don't follow the lights." I dropped the phone. I thought maybe it was a prank, maybe someone was screwing with me, but then 2 nights later, I saw him. Rick. He was standing across the street from my apartment, just barely visible under the streetlight, pale, thin, like he'd been starving. He was staring straight at my window. I ran out to get him, but when I got there, he was gone. No footprints, no sign anyone had been there, just a triangle burned into the grass where he'd been standing. 3 dots, just like the lights over the lake. I know how this sounds, believe me. I want it to be madness. At least that would make sense. But it's not. They took us. I know it now. and they put me back, but not Rick or Tony. Why me? I still don't know. All I know is, ever since that night, I felt watched, like something is waiting, studying, and every time I close my eyes, I see those lights spinning above the trees, closer every time. I haven't gone back to Lake Hollow. I never will. But I know one day soon they'll come back for me. And next time, I don't think they'll bring me back. Encounter number 6. I was driving home from a weekend at my brother's place in North Dakota, cutting through the back roads of Minnesota. It was just after midnight, and I was on Highway 29, flat, empty, and lined with cornfields that seemed to stretch into forever. I remember checking the clock, 12:07 a.m. I still had about an hour until I reached home, and I was getting tired. I turned off the radio, cracked a window to let in some cold air, and just focused on the dark ribbon of road in front of me. That's when the headlights dimmed. Not all the way, just like someone had turned down a dimmer switch. The dashboard lights flickered too, and I thought my battery might be dying, but the engine kept running fine. Then came the static. At first I thought it was a radio, even though it was off, but the sound wasn't coming from the speakers. It was everywhere. In the air, in my head, like 1,000 TVs hissing just behind my ears. I looked down for a second to tap the dashboard, and when I looked up, there was something in the road. At first I thought it was a deer, but no, it was tall, too tall, slender, pale, grey, and it wasn't walking, it was gliding, just crossing the highway from one field to the other, its arms long and jointless, dragging by its side. I slammed on the brakes, skidded halfway across the centre line. The thing didn't even flinch. It just kept moving, then vanished into the corn. Heart racing, I sat there with hands shaking on the wheel, trying to catch my breath. That's when I noticed something strange. My dashboard clock now read 3:21 a.m. I blinked at it, thinking I'd maybe read it wrong before, but I hadn't. Only a few minutes had passed, or should have passed, but somehow over 3 hours had vanished. Gone. That moment is where everything changes for me, because ever since that night, I've never been the same. I don't mean mentally, though sure, I've had trouble sleeping and some anxiety. No, I mean physically. I started getting nosebleeds the next day, constant migraines, my skin would itch, uncontrollably, especially around the base of my neck. I finally went to a doctor after I blacked out in a grocery store parking lot. They ran some scans, blood works, MRIs. Everything came back normal, except one thing. There was a foreign object in my neck. Something small, metallic, just under the skin, about the size of a grain of rice. The doctor said it looked like a microchip. When I asked to have it removed, he said he couldn't find it during the procedure. It was there on the scan, but when he cut me open, there was nothing. I know how this sounds. I do. People have accused me of lying, of seeking attention, but I'm not the only one. A week after my encounter, I posted anonymously about it in a forum for high strangeness and missing time events. The response was overwhelming. Dozens of people messaged me privately, some from the same area, same road, same kind of story. A bright light, a sudden blackout, missing time, then strange symptoms. One guy even sent me a sketch of the figure he saw. It was exactly the same as what crossed my path. Tall, grey, featureless, with eyes too big and limbs too long. That's when I realised I wasn't hallucinating. I was abducted. I've tried regression hypnosis, even though I was sceptical. During one session I remembered being pulled upward, my seatbelt dissolving like it didn't exist, and floating through the roof of my car. I saw lights above me, spinning, then a blinding flash, then a room, cold, white, filled with a hum that buzzed through my bones, and shadowy figures, 3 of them. One stood over me, tilting its head side to side, like it was trying to understand what I was. Another inserted something into my neck. The third just stared, unmoving. I woke up screaming. The hypnotist said it was one of the clearest abduction regressions he'd ever seen. It's been 8 months now. I still drive Highway 29 sometimes, hoping to trigger another event. I've installed dash cams, EMF meters, even infrared sensors. Nothing's happened again, at least not yet, but I know they're still watching me. Last week I woke up with new bruises on my arms in the shape of fingers, long ones, too long to be mine. My phone sometimes won't work for hours, showing static or flickering symbols instead of apps. And sometimes late at night I see flashes of light above the cornfields, silent, pulsing, waiting. People ask me why I'd want to remember what happened, why I keep looking for them. The truth is, I don't think it's over. They took me once, and I don't think I ever really came back. Not all of me. That's all for this evening. Sweet dreams.